Hi, in this video I'll show you how to create and manage CEPH crush map in Mars 200 using a web interface. The crush algorithm determines how to store and retrieve data by computing data storage locations. Crush empowers CEPH clients to communicate with OSDs directly rather than through a centralized server or broker. Crush map contains a list of OSDs, a list of buckets for aggregating the devices into physical location, and a list of rules that tell Crush how it should replicate data in a CEPH clusters pool. When you create a CEPH cluster, CEPH generates a default crush map for your configuration. CEPH OSD tree will show you your current crush map. So in this default crush map, we have a root named as default. So default is a bucket with type root, under which we have different buckets of type host which holds the OSDs. So the default bucket of type root will have all the hosts and all the OSDs. For example, if an OSD goes down, it will be difficult to track the OSD is in which chassis or rack. So a crush map can help you to locate the rack and chassis of the host with the failed OSD in the event you need to use on-site support or replace hardware. Similarly, crush map may help you identify faults more quickly. For example, if all OSDs in a particular rack goes down simultaneously, the fault may lie with a network switch or power to the rack rather than OSDs themselves. So I'll show you how to manage this using the web console. Under CEPH, we have crush map. So this is the output of CEPH OSD tree shown graphically. So default root is the default bucket and the default crush map created. New root was created for this demo. We'll create few buckets. So we can create bucket of type root, rack and chassis. Using the move host option, we can move host from one bucket to another bucket. Crush rule will help you to list and create crush rules, and delete bucket will help you to delete empty buckets. We'll start by creating a new root. Let's name it as my new root. So you have my new root, a new root created. The same is visible in CEPH OSD tree. And the bucket type is root. Now we move forward by creating some racks within my new root and then create chassis within that rack. So we create another bucket type with rack, name it as rack 1 and place it under our new root, that is my new root. So let's create one more rack, name it as rack 2 and place it under the same root. We create chassis, name it as C1 and press it under rack 1. Okay. Create another chassis C2 under the same rack. create one more chassis C3 and place it under rack 2. Okay, I created C2, so it should be C3. C3 under rack 2. So we have our new crush map created, which has 2 racks and 2 chassis under rack 1 and 1 chassis under rack 2. A custom crush map can also help you identify the physical locations where Ceph stores redundant copies of data when the placement groups associated with a failed host are in a degraded state. For example, if we just use the default crush map and you create a pool with replica 2 or 3, all the replicas will be distributed with a default rule, crush rule named as replicated rule set, which is of type host. This says that the distribution of the copies of your objects will be based on host. So one host will contain one copy of the replica of the object, which may end up lying in the same chassis or same rack. In case a chassis or a rack goes down, your complete all the copies of the objects may go down. So crush map can help us if we create a new rule which could be based on chassis or rack instead of host. So in case we create a pool which uses a rule set which has type as rack and replica as 2. So one copy of the object will go in rack 1 and other copy will go in under rack 2. So if your one rack is down, still your data is accessible from rack 2. If we select the type as chassis, so when you create a pool of replica 2, your one copy of the object will go in chassis 1 and one will go in chassis 2. So I'll show you how to create a crush rule set. Under crush rule, select create, name it as my new rule set. We will be using the my new root and the placement type can be selected as either rack or chassis. The rule sets can be listed. So you have my new rule set as type chassis. Now we create a pool using our new crush map and new crush rule set. So under Ceph pools, we create a new pool of type replica, name it as pool 1, select replica size as 2 and select the crush rule as our newly created my new rule set and create. Now when objects are created in pool 1, one copy of the object will go in chassis 1 and other copy of the object will go in chassis 2. But now we don't have any host under chassis 1 and chassis 2. So we will have to move some host under chassis 1 and chassis 2, which we will do by the move host option. So we'll click on move host, select maybe node 3, move it to chassis 1. Move another host, maybe node 4 to chassis 2. move some more host, maybe let's say node 5 again back to chassis 1. And node 6 to chassis 2. Now let's have a look at our new crush map. So under our new route we have rack 1, under rack 1 we have chassis 1, chassis 2, and under chassis 1 we have node 3, node 5, under chassis 2 we have node 4 and node 6. So we have 4 OSDs under this new route. Now in pool 1, when the object goes, the object will go under chassis 1 and another copy will go under chassis 2. You can also delete unused buckets or move your host back to default. To delete buckets, you can select the delete bucket option. So we have chassis 3 which is not being used. You can select chassis 3. Chassis 3 gets removed from the crush map and also from the crush tree. You can also delete rack 2 if it is not being used. You can also move your host to different chassis, or so let's say I want to move node 3 to chassis 2. So node 3 moves to chassis 2, or if you want to move any node back to default root bucket, that can also be done. So node 3 now goes back to default.